Hi everyone. Welcome to video 3 in our series. This is a continuation on video 2 where we left off with using PNPM and a Monorepo configuration to create a micro front-end. So today we're going to be using NX, which is another Monorepo tool. We'll be still using it with PNPM as our package manager, but there's a number of reasons why we want to choose NX. We're going to take the existing micro front-end we have, we're going to walk through step-by-step migrating it into NX, and then this will essentially set us up for future iterations in the videos to come where we can go and keep expanding our micro front end and all the features we're using for module federation. To recap what NX is, so NX is a tool for monorepos. NX supports a number of features. Some of the highlights of NX include distributed caching through the NX cloud, different things that are going to help increase your CI time. It also supports different, distributed caching that you can use locally as well. So if you have a number of different dependencies within your monorepo, such as packages or other projects in the case of a micro front end, you can leverage previous builds and not have to rebuild those over and over again when you're going to run those locally. So let's get started with our NX monorepo. We'll actually click Get Started here. There's a command here that we'll be using. There's a number of different videos. You could pick your own stack here if you're using a different framework. There's a lot of support in NX. There's a lot of documentation and some of the terminology that's present in NX, such as generators and executors, will kind of make sense as you see them in action. And then as you keep expanding your experience with NX, you'll see just how powerful the system is and flexible. You're not totally stuck within their ecosystem. You can custom config and extend things as you need to. So if we jump into our monorepo here, the first command that we're going to run is the one from their site, which is just create NX workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and execute the command. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask us to create it and give it a name. So I'm going to just call this MFE monorepo. It's going to ask us for a stack. We'll choose React. We're not going to choose a framework, so we're just going to hit none. And we're going to choose an integrated monorepo, which means it'll have multiple projects. We'll give it the name, and we'll choose Webpack since we're using module federation. We'll choose Playwright for our end-to-end test. And we're going to stick with CSS since we already have CSS modules, and I'll turn off distributed caching for now. All right, looks like our command here is finished. It does give us a link here to a tutorial. We're not going to use the tutorial, so let's start stepping through the project. So if you remember where we left off, we were using PNPM workspaces. NX suggests a single version policy, which is made popular at other companies like Google, where you'll basically use the root package JSON to configure your dependencies. The idea with this configuration is that it's easier to control versions and the sprawl and kind of drift between versions by just having a single source of truth. You don't have to use it this way. It's optional. So we're gonna leave it today and just kind of move on with that configuration. So the first thing you'll notice is the name we chose. It'll create this subdirectory. So since we have an existing repo, one of the things we're going to do is just move this code up a directory. We previously didn't have Prettier and ESLint Jest configured. Since they do that for us, we're just going to go ahead and use what they have. In terms of our TS config and in terms of anything else in the root, there's nothing really that we want to keep or need to keep. The couple of things that I will keep, though, is in the dependencies here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this subdirectory, and I'm going to add the new packages that we need for our project. And at this point here, we can start moving the code up and basically just overriding the files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to grab all of these, and I'm going to move them to the root directory. I'll just overwrite everything. At this point, once everything moves, this MFE folder is now gone. We can see that it created a default application for us, and this is just using React with that configuration we chose at the very beginning. So it's got an end-to-end project using Playwright, again, linter, Jest, Babel, everything set up for us with their React generator. So if we go back to the documentation here, we're using NX React. So this is just a generator for applications. This is already installed. So we're going to go ahead and just take their create new application command. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to generate a new React application that's going to basically take place of app 2 that's going to house our product hero. So the way to do that is we're going to use the NX generator called NX React. This is pretty much already installed for us. We just have to use their generate command. So I'm going to paste the command here and I'm going to go ahead and just call this hero. And when I generate this, I'm going to say I'm not using React Router and I want to use Playwright for my end-to-end test. It's going to go ahead and it's going to generate this. I don't know why it generated outside of the directory. That's okay though. We're just going to move it within the app folder for now. And basically we'll have a project that's fully scaffolded out with all of the React template pieces. So it's got, linting and it's got, pretty much everything you would expect a React project to have. So this effectively could replace, create React app if you are still using that. Once we have this configured here, let's go ahead and try to get the main project up and running. So the first thing we want to do is come in here and look at the directory. And we're going to compare this with our host application. So one thing with the Webpack config is it's a little different. So let's just bypass that for now. So in the host, what I'm going to do is come in and I'm going to replace the index HTML that they provided for us. I'm going to grab all of our assets here, and these are basically these t-shirt photos. And I'm going to go ahead and move it into their assets directory. Their application here, we don't actually need. One thing to note is they already support CSS modules out of the box, so it's good to know. We'll go ahead, we'll delete that app directory. We'll delete public since we've already transferred all of that. We do have our Jotai plugin here, so let's go ahead and Babel and put the Jotai fast refresh plugin. Now we got to basically go in and transfer our app, right? So in this directory here, they do have this concept of environments. This is environment configuration. Other than that, it's an empty directory. So we're going to go ahead and just basically move our entire app. Actually, you know what? Let's put this in app. Let's grab our entire directory here. We'll move it into app. At this point here, we have the main and styles. So what we're going to do is we're going to just move out our index file and we're going to delete their styles here. They have a main. We don't technically need main, so we're going to move our index out as well. And at this point, we're going to go into the project JSON for the host and we're going to update the main file. So think of this as like your package JSON. And we're going to update the styles, right? That this is like the HTML plugin for Webpack, right? If you think about just kind of configuring that. So at this point here, we've got this index file. One thing we didn't do in the previous video was set up the Bootstrap file that Module Federation recommends. So we're going to go ahead and grab our index, put it into Bootstrap. And then in our index, we're going to go ahead and just import the Bootstrap file. This gives us an asynchronous boundary so Module Federation can go and run. So at this point here, if I go and I try to NX serve, and I'm going to say MFE Monorepo, let's just kind of see where we're at as a baseline. So it should fail, and it's going to say I can't find Jotai, so I'm going to do my PNPM install. Now I'm not using a workspace again. We're just installing this at the root, and with PNPM, we can re-enable workspaces if we want. It's not necessary though because we're using that single version policy configuration. Now that it's installed here, let's go ahead and run it again. Try to get a baseline. So right now, basically what it's doing is it's set up on an auto-configured port, so 4200, and you'll see the error is it can't find product hero, right? So we know that this isn't configured. We're not using the same TypeScript configuration anymore, so that path alias is gone. Now NX is configured by default to use your tsconfig path aliases and make them aliases inside of Webpack. So right now, this is good. let's jump over to our hero app and do that migration as well. So at this point here, host can be deleted. So I will do that before we start. So if we look at here, the hero application that it generated, it's pretty much the same thing here. We're going to start with overwriting the index HTML. We're going to take, we actually don't need these assets here. This was just a copy and paste from the previous video. We don't need Jotai as well. So we're going to go in, we're going to delete their application that was created. We're going to delete the main and the styles because we don't need those. And we're going to go ahead and just drag down that code and move it here. Now at this point, we still have the Webpack config, and the main thing here is that we still need to port over module federation. So I'm going to leave app 2, even though I deleted home. Just going to leave it as kind of a reference. I'm going to go into here because there was also just one small copy and paste artifact from the previous video. And that's just, this is a single app. It doesn't have any other components. It's the federated piece. So I'm going to go into the project JSON here. I'm going to go ahead and update this. So if you remember, I did move this into a subdirectory. So I'm going to just use the replace feature here to look for hero slash, and I'm going to replace that with apps hero slash. And the main reason why is because everything's relative to the root directory. So you always want, most of these paths in here to be the fully, qualified path, right? So at this point, I've went ahead and ported this over. And if I go into my console and I say nx serve, and I'm just going to say hero, which is my project name, it should go and it should try to start here. So one issue is it's looking for the base TS config. So let's go ahead and look in here. Yeah, so I think we just have to go up one directory. That should fix it, because remember we moved it down into the apps directory. And then we've got our Webpack config. So if we're going to go ahead and run this again, so those warnings should have went away. You'll see that it's still running on 4200. Again, it's just an auto-assigned port for now, but you can see this is app 2. Remember, it's got the blank template, and we're just federating out that component. So one of the things that we're going to do at this point, let's go ahead and stop our Webpack instance. We're going to go into the project. We're going to go down to serve, and we are just going to go ahead and set the port. We'll make this the same port that it was running on, which is 3001. And at this point, we could start migrating the Webpack config. So when you look at the NX Webpack config, it's going to look a little different. They're going to have these concepts of plugins, and the plugins are different boilerplate stuff that it's adding for CSS modules and all of the boilerplate. And these are actually really nice out of the box, so you don't have to really touch too much. It's kind of a really good starting point. So one of the things we're going to do to get started here is we're going to pull in the module federation plugin, and we have to create a configuration for this. So this is very similar to Webpack, right? It's the same basic configuration. So in hero here, we're going to say module federation.config.js. One of the things we want to do is, and I'm going to just kind of copy this over to show it. I'm going to rename this to hero. So the big thing to note here is that this is basically what you would put in Webpack already. So if you look at this file here, it's basically the same configuration. The big difference here, the thing to note is that the name property needs to match the name of your NX project. That's basically how they do discovery internally. And at least at this current version of NX, this has to match. So if you change this name, it'll say it can't find the project. Now that this is created, we can go ahead and we can import our module federation config, and we can go in and add a new plugin here. So basically what we want to do is we want to take this plugin and compose it, right? So we should be able to say module federation config and basically add our config like this. At this point, we're going to go in, we're going to just do a quick serve again. Okay, so it says can't use import. I think autocomplete got me there. So I'm going to go ahead and just change this to a require real quick, and we'll rerun it. And I can't spell. And all right, so at this point, what should happen is it should be on our new port, so 3001. The app should still load, shouldn't be any real difference here, and it's just serving the shell. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and delete app 2. You'll notice that, there's no CSS module configuration. We're not setting up rules. Pretty much everything is happening here. As noted here, the config object, it is the Webpack config, so you can do anything you want to, extend it, overwrite, etc., all through here. So it's that easy to set it up. We're going to go into the other Webpack config now. And what I'm going to do is just kind of copy this as a good starting point. I'm going to just paste this over, and I'm going to paste my module federation config over. The big difference is here is, again, I got to make it match, what my project name is. So for remotes here, now it's a little different. There's a number of different ways you can actually configure this. So NX actually has a page on module federation, and if you scroll down, they'll give you some really good examples too of an Angular and a React repo. And they'll talk a little bit about the commands and how you can use, dash remotes and dev remotes, and you can run other dependencies within your project, using these different commands. And it's all built into here. It comes with the React plugin. So I'll go over to their React example real quick, and just to kind of show, go into the host, and I'll go into their prod config. And if you look here, they give you some really good examples of how you can configure the remotes object. I'm not actually going to use, URLs or, paths or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is just simply type the word hero, and it'll actually handle this. It'll go and resolve the project and find the right port and everything for me. So there's not really a lot that I have to do there. And again, this is already set up. We don't need CSS modules. That's already taken care of for us. Now, where this was imported at was in the home component inside of the host or the shell application. So now when we come in here, the first thing that's going to happen is we're not going to have a definition for this because we don't have that path alias set up. So I'm going to take kind of a shortcut for this, this video here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to declare a module. The first thing we will have to do, though, is you need to make sure that when you look at kind of what's there for home, it's products, right? Well, the name of our remote is not products anymore. It's now called hero. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a module. This is just in my global declaration file here, and I'm going to call it hero/product hero. So now if I come into here and I say hero/product hero, this will resolve now, and it's going to resolve back to the definition I just made. But there's no typings on this. So it's basically going to be an any type component. In terms of different TypeScript patterns in the Monorepo, we're going to cover this in another video and look at the plugins for module federation and different ways you can do that. You can still rely on TypeScript here, but the reality of the situation is if you're versioning your remotes and you're deploying those, inevitably those versions will go out of sync with what's in the repository, versus what's deployed out there and maybe what your application is consuming. So at this point here, we have some declarations, and everything's probably ready to just do a quick run and just kind of see where we're at. So we're going to go ahead and run the host here. And with the auto port, it should run on 4200, and we load it here, and let's see what's going on. So it's saying that it can't load the remote entry file 3001. So right now what's happening is it's trying to load the other remote, but the other remote's not running. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our project JSON here. We're going to go down to our Webpack dev server. And the nice thing here is we're going to go back to their React example, and we're going to look inside their project JSON here. And you'll see what they use is they're not using Webpack Serve, they're using React Module Federation Dev Server. You certainly don't have to use this, but the nice thing is if I just swap this out, I can come in here and say dev remotes, and I can say hero. And if I go ahead and rerun the command, it'll go and it'll launch both of those for me automatically. And it'll go and discover the right ports, and everything just works, right? So you can see here we have the application running, and everything is configured for us through using the NX framework and the different plugins and executors that they offer. So again, all the functionality is here working on the site. There's really not much to change here. Again, you can remove a lot of the code you have. We now have all of these different configuration values. And we can continue to add projects just by using their generators. So again, the end-to-end test for us, the configurations there. And we could still pretty much utilize whatever we would normally use, right? Right now it's kind of defaulting back to NPM, but you can set your package manager. You can set all of the different dependencies. So if you say, I think it's NX graph, you can come in here and you can look at different projects and you can look at how they're consuming each other. So in this particular case, you've got apps that are running within the Monorepo. You can see relationships between different projects here. So if I went in and I said that I had and you're technically supposed to set this up, but if I said I had an implicit dependency here, I would expect this to show on the graph here as an implicit dependency. So kind of using the various pieces of it here, you get a lot of different functionality. There's also the concept of tags. So you can come in and you can restrict actually which projects can reference each other. So right now, a lot of the constraints are off, but you could come in here and you could say my product domain is allowed to reference other product domains. You could do lots of different kind of restrictions and things that are kind of built in, and it's the Monorepo, the management and the tooling. So definitely go and read the NX documentation. There's a lot there to cover. This isn't a comprehensive NX course, but as we expand these apps, we will continue to use a lot of these NX features. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this is helpful. If you're looking at Monorepo tooling, definitely check out NX. And in the next video, we're going to explore federated types, and we're going to talk about dynamic remotes and how we can use configuration to drive the sources that those modules come from, so we can start making them a little bit more dynamic. All right, thanks for watching.